In the history of modern occultism, few names stir as much fascination and unease as Anton LaVey. To some, he was a prophet of freedom, a man who broke chains of guilt and preached the religion of the self. To others, he was a showman, a trickster who reveled in shock and scandal. But whether one sees him as visionary or charlatan, there is no denying that Anton LaVey left behind a legacy that reshaped the landscape of the occult. He was, and still is, the taboo teacher of rebellion. When people hear Satanism, they imagine hooded figures worshipping a horned devil. Yet LaVey's philosophy was not about worshipping a literal Satan at all. For him, Satan was a symbol, a mirror reflecting the true nature of humanity. He believed Satan stood for indulgence instead of abstinence, for wisdom instead of self-deception, for vengeance instead of meek submission. In his vision, Satan was freedom. Freedom from guilt, freedom from the control of organized religion, freedom to live unapologetically, as one's authentic self. But who was Anton LaVey before he became the self-proclaimed high priest of the Church of Satan? What path led him to become one of the most notorious occult figures of the 20th century? He was born Howard Stanton LaVey in Chicago in the year 1930. His family later moved to San Francisco, where the restless young man dropped out of high school and sought adventure. He found it in the carnival. As a teenager, he joined the traveling shows and worked in the circus as a big cat handler. He was a lion tamer, a profession already cloaked in danger and spectacle. This taste for the dramatic, for commanding attention in the limelight, would never leave him. Later, he developed a passion for music, becoming an organist who played in nightclubs, carnivals, and burlesque houses. There, under the neon lights and smoky air, he watched humanity in its rawest form. Men who pretended to be pious on Sunday mornings were the same ones sneaking into strip clubs on Saturday nights. To LaVey, this was the great hypocrisy of religion, a system that condemned desire while secretly indulging in it. This hypocrisy planted the seeds of his rebellion. By the late 1950s, LaVey was hosting private gatherings in his San Francisco home. Friends and seekers would gather to discuss philosophy, psychology, magic, and the mysteries of the night. LaVey's striking appearance and dramatic style made him a figure of fascination. His home, painted black, filled with exotic animals and occult imagery, became a place where outsiders could question everything they had been taught. In 1966, on April 30th, Walpurgis Night, a date long associated with witches and folklore, Anton LaVey declared the founding of the Church of Satan. Shaving his head in the style of ancient executioners, he proclaimed himself the Black Pope. With this bold act, he launched a movement that would capture headlines across the world. From the very beginning, LaVey understood the power of theater. He staged dramatic rituals featuring robed figures, nude altars, and inverted crosses. He conducted black masses not to worship evil, but to parody and mock Christian ceremonies, liberating participants from the chains of guilt. He knew how to draw the cameras, and the media eagerly played along. Time and Newsweek ran features asking if Satan had found new followers in America. For LaVey, the spectacle was the point. Every headline, every gasp of outrage spread his message further. In 1969, LaVey published the Satanic Bible, the book that would become the foundation of modern Satanism. In it, he laid out his philosophy in clear, provocative terms. At its core, LaVeyan Satanism is atheistic. There is no literal Satan, no hell, no heaven. Instead, Satan is a symbol of humanity's true nature, proud, indulgent, animalistic, and creative. LaVey rejected the idea of original sin. To him, human instincts were not shameful, they were to be celebrated. His famous 9 satanic statements summed it up. Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence, vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams, wisdom instead of self-deceit, kindness to those who deserve it instead of wasted love, vengeance instead of forgiveness, responsibility to the responsible man as just another animal, the so-called sins as gateways to gratification, and finally, Satan as the best friend religion ever had, because he kept it in business. This philosophy was simple, yet revolutionary. It turned morality on its head. Where religion preached meekness, LaVey preached pride. Where religion demanded obedience, LaVey demanded freedom. Where religion saw sin, LaVey saw joy. Ritual, for LaVey, was never about summoning demons or making pacts with dark forces. It was about psychology. He described rituals as psychodrama, theatrical performances that allowed individuals to release emotions, focus their will, and feel empowered. The roaring chants, the dark symbols, the burning candles, all were tools to unlock the subconscious mind. The Church of Satan remained relatively small in numbers. At its peak, membership only reached a few thousand, but its influence was far greater than its size. Heavy metal bands, horror movies, and countercultural movements all drew inspiration from LaVey's imagery and writings. His message of rebellion and self-determination resonated with those who felt stifled by tradition. Even today, his writings continue to inspire new generations of seekers, skeptics, and artists. But like every occult figure, Anton LaVey cast a shadow as well. Many of his personal stories turned out to be exaggerated or false. He claimed affairs with famous women, adventures with carnivals, and mystical encounters that later biographers could not verify. To critics, he was less a prophet and more a master of publicity. His own organization sometimes reflected this contradiction. Though he preached personal freedom, he also sold priesthood titles and controlled the church tightly, leading to splits and rival factions. Perhaps more troubling was his refusal to distance himself from extremist admirers. Neo-Nazis and racists occasionally aligned themselves with his philosophy, and LaVey chose not to denounce them. His writings contained elitist, social Darwinist themes that attracted dangerous followers. While LaVey did not preach hate directly, his ambiguity left a dark stain on his reputation. So, what can we learn from LaVey's life and philosophy today? First, the courage to rebel. LaVey showed that it is possible to break away from religious control and live authentically. He gave people permission to embrace their instincts, to stop feeling guilty for being human, and to celebrate life fully. Second, the power of ritual as psychology. Even without belief in supernatural beings, rituals can unlock the mind and focus the will. They can be tools for transformation, empowerment, and catharsis. LaVey's emphasis on theater and ritual reminds us that symbolism has power, even when we know it is symbolic. But third, we learn caution. LaVey reminds us not to confuse rebellion with wisdom or style with substance. His charisma and theatrics gave him power, but they also led to deception and superficiality. His flirtation with dangerous imagery shows how rebellion without responsibility can drift into darkness. For the modern occultist, Anton LaVey is both inspiration and warning. He is the figure who declared that guilt is a prison, that sin can be sacred, and that self-determination is divine. But he is also the reminder that freedom must be paired with ethics, that rebellion must be guided by integrity, and that the shadow can never be ignored. Anton LaVey died in 1997, but his legacy endures. His Church of Satan still exists, led by successors who continue to preach his atheistic, individualistic doctrine. Other groups, such as the Temple of Set and the Satanic Temple, have branched off in different directions, each carrying pieces of his influence. And in popular culture, his imagery, the black robes, the inverted pentagram, the defiant sneer against authority, continues to echo. He remains the taboo teacher of rebellion, a man who dared to turn religion upside down, who proclaimed that the devil was not a monster in the shadows, but the spirit of freedom inside every human being. In the end, perhaps Anton LaVey's greatest lesson is this: that liberation begins when we dare to look into the darkness, laugh at fear, and embrace the self without apology. Anton LaVey asked people to stop looking to heaven or hell for answers. Instead, he pointed to the mirror. And whether one agrees with him or not, that challenge to face oneself honestly, without excuses, remains his most enduring act of rebellion.